Hello and welcome, everyone. I think this is the last panel slot of the day, so thank you, everyone, for making it through. We hope that we're going to make this one exciting and interesting to take you through to evening drinks. So really excited to be here today. My name is Emma Dorn. I co-lead McKinsey's global K-12 education practice. And I'm very passionate about teachers and teaching. We all know that teachers and teaching really is the heart of excellent school systems. We've profiled education systems around the world, and from Sierra in Brazil to Mississippi in the US to Estonia and Singapore, we see that systems that manage to improve put teachers and teaching at the center. But we also know that here in the US, teachers are often overburdened, they're overworked, and they're underprepared. And so I'm really excited to invite you to this panel today to talk about how AI, technology, but also changes in structures and processes and systems can really support our US teachers better to revolutionize both teaching, but then eventually student learning. But we kind of need to start with the problem. And so what I'd love to ask, my first question to each of our wonderful panelists here is to introduce yourself, but as you introduce yourself, can you share what you're seeing as the biggest challenge facing teachers today?
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Shaily Baranwal. I'm the founder CEO of Elevate K-12. Elevate K-12 is one of the largest live teaching company that is solving for the teacher shortage problem across school districts by providing a teaching solution. We work with over 600 school districts across the countries. And on one side, we're solving for the teacher shortage problem. On the other side, thousands of teachers are leaving school districts because they want flexibility and are jumping on to our platform to get the flexibility to work from home. So it's a workforce transformation of the teaching profession. To me, what I see as the biggest challenge, which can have a lot of solutions and which requires more conversations, is what is going on with the supply of teachers. To me, it's a leaky bucket. All of us know that every year, more and more teachers are leaving the profession. How many of you are former teachers? How many of you are still in the school district? More in the school district than with teachers. Okay, but a lot of teachers are leaving the profession because after COVID, they wanted more flexibility and they want to work from home. Now, many teacher certification programs are shutting down across the country. How many of you are telling your kids, nieces, nephews, friends, get into the teaching profession, it's awesome? That's not happening, right? So your supply at the top of the funnel is reducing by the year, and more teachers are leaving the profession. So to me, the biggest problem is every single technology of AI and tool will work when you actually have awesome, great teachers who want to be in the profession and who stay in the profession. So to make sure that more teachers stay in the profession and more come into the profession is what I see as the biggest challenge facing education, especially in the K-12 phase.
My name is David Miyashiro. I'm the superintendent of the Cajon Valley School District, just about 20 miles east of here. And specifically for my community, we have the largest refugee population in the country in a 65 square mile radius. So for my teachers, we have 40 languages spoken in our 28 schools. One teacher may have a class of 25 with 18 different languages spoken, and these are newcomer students. And a lot of our newcomer students are coming from Ukraine, from the Middle East, from war-torn countries with trauma. So dealing with trauma and language learners who have behaviors that you would expect from kids that are coming from really rough times is challenging. That's what we're facing right now.
I'm Carole Basile. I'm the Dean of the Mary Lou Fulton Teachers College at Arizona State University. That's ASU for then anybody hasn't noticed yet. I have to say that I don't think teacher shortage is the biggest challenge. I don't think recruitment or retention is the biggest challenge. I think those are symptomatic. I think that the biggest challenge we face right now is actually building a system for variance. So we have built a system for average. With the average kid, whatever assessments, everything has been built for average. And in fact, as David points out, actually the biggest challenge we have is that all of our kids are not average. None of them are average. None of you are average. So we are having to actually build a system to think about variance. And at the same time, we are also asking educators to be all things to all kids at all times. So when you think about the fact that we have built this education system on average, and we're asking teachers to do everything, that's the challenge. That's dissonant for the kind of system that we actually need. So we have to start thinking about workforce. We have to think about workforce design, who's in the field, what they do, how we build teams of educators around kids, because variance is the challenge today.
Hi, my name's Kinsey Rawe. I'm Senior Vice President and General Manager for our Courseware and Instructional Services businesses at Imagine Learning. Agree with a lot of things that each of the other three panelists have said, but honestly, I think the biggest challenge facing teachers today, leading to teachers leaving the profession, which I do agree is symptomatic, is the overburdening of teachers. I mean, they've always had the other duties as assigned. You know, if you're the volleyball coach or you're doing parking assistance. But coming out of the pandemic, you think about all of the things they have to grapple with. You now have to be a child psychologist dealing with socio-emotional issues. You have to take all of these different state standards and curricula and try to interpret that in a way that pleases the state, pleases the principal, pleases the students, and new entrant into this, parents. So you're fielding inquiries from all angles on that, knowing that you might be photographed, videotaped, recorded with everything that you say. And then on top of all of that, you've got to figure out your own psychological well-being and supports for that, and how do you go to get help when you're just in a crisis mode. You take all of these things together, and the symptom then becomes leaving the profession. So that is really the crisis we have to confront, is the continuing application of more and more, beginning with NCLB and the state testing mandates and the pressures that come with that, all the way up to today, and the socioeconomic and political lines that they're all having to confront and walk a fine line on.
So there was a long list of challenges, right from the supply side and recruiting teachers through to supporting teachers in the classroom to deal with the diversity of students that exist and the diversity of student needs, through to retaining teachers and also giving teachers some life balance so that new folks actually want to join the profession. If we maybe let's start off at the recruitment end and the supply side, and then we can kind of move into the classroom. Any ways that you see AI and technology more broadly playing a role in addressing this challenge of supply, of recruitment, attracting the best folks into teaching?
Our solution is more human-based than technology-based, and so our vision for our kids are happy kids and healthy relationships on a path to gainful employment, which means that we want our teachers to be happy and engaged in healthy relationships, enjoying their job. So we ask questions like, what are things that you spend money on that you wish the district would pay for? The 4 things they said were candy. Our board said, we can't buy them candy, can we? So they're gonna do it anyways, so we take that off the table. Fidget spinners and toys for the treasure chests for rewards. Curriculum resources, food for themselves, and film developing for primary teachers so they could put their kids' pictures on the wall. And so we paid for those things, and they also said teachers pay teachers. So we have a district-wide license for teachers pay teachers, and it's free for all of our teachers because that's what they asked for. Building a positive work culture, a place that people want to work. We give our principals a culture budget that can only be spent on food, fun, and swag, and team building. And Southwest Airlines, Starbucks, did good Fortune 50 companies, they do those things. And so we're building a positive work culture where people want to come every day.
So what we did was we actually integrated AI into our teacher recruiting tools last year. What that did was, if you look at the recruitment process of a teacher, it starts with the teacher knowing about your school or your district or your program, how they are assessed, and then what is their experience in that assessment, and then do they choose to join you or not. And we integrated an AI tool that now works 24/7, 365 days. We started with a team in US, then we added a team in Philippines, and then we cut both the teams, and now we have just AI. So our application time reduced by 40%, number one. Now the instructors, at any point of time when they apply, they have an AI recruiter called Ellie that can talk to them, and we're capturing that data. Just like students at some point of time will have an AI tutor, I think in the recruitment phase, there is going to be a personalized recruiter that can work and handhold, not just in teaching, but in any other profession. The third thing that we have not yet done that I would really like to do is how do we assess a teacher? We all know that a teacher can have a certification, but you could still be the most boring teacher, and that's not going to make a great class. The engagement matters. How do you assess the engagement of the teacher with AI? We still have humans doing it, but the next step in our evolution is having an AI assess, which is freaky, but it's going to happen.
Very freaky. And I think this is a reminder of both some of the promise of AI, but also the limits of AI. So some of the things that we've just been talking about are things that technology can help with, and some of them are things that are kind of broader on culture and structure. And so I think it's interesting to kind of work out where you hit that barrier. Maybe let's talk about in the classroom. We've all talked a little bit about the overburdening of teachers. Are there ways that AI can help save teachers time? I know we, as McKinsey, a couple of years ago, did an analysis where AI and technology tools could potentially save teachers 10 to 20 hours a week that they could put back into actually supporting students, counseling students, one-on-one support. But how does this happen? Have you seen any really interesting examples of how AI can save teachers time, remove some of that burdening, enable them to do the stuff that they really love?
When AI can do IEPs, we're in business. So there is all of that, right? But I do think, though, that you've got to think also about the technology that isn't there yet, and the technology that is keeping teachers in a box. We had a conversation about this morning, about thinking about now how do we actually talk to teachers, talk to districts, how do we help to move the kinds of things that teachers want to do, how they want to work together. I always say there are two things that we learned during the pandemic. One is people do not want to be isolated, and people want flexibility. Teaching is both isolating and inflexible. And we've got to figure out what's the technology that helps to shift that. Because humans need humans first. And so when we can figure out how that technology can move out of the way, how technology is actually not adding to, because I think there are things that we're seeing, but they're keeping people in the, one teacher, one classroom box, that it's not providing flexibility. So technology has to start to think about how it shifts and how we're not putting more on teachers, actually, because now they've got to create an Excel spreadsheet because the technology won't allow them to do certain things. And so all of these things, I think, we can't get to a better experience for both teachers and kids until we figure some of these kinds of things out.
I mean, you talked about flexibility, Shaily. Do you want to talk a little bit about how the technology that you're working with enables more flexibility for teachers?
That's actually a really good question. So when we see teachers leaving school districts and coming to work for Elevate K-12, they work from home, they stream into a school district classroom. The number one reason, every survey, is because they wanted flexibility. I call it ACBC, after COVID and before COVID. Before COVID, the teachers didn't think that it was possible. COVID forced all of us to think that it is possible to work from home. And when teachers saw that 83% of teachers are women, and when they saw everyone else gets an optionality to work from home, and they still have to get up at 6 a.m. in the morning, that's the flexibility they want. 20% of our teachers are living the #van life. So they're backpacking. They're certified teachers from US backpacking in Spain and Thailand, and they stream into a classroom in Texas, right? So that's flexibility of time and flexibility of location. That is extremely important to them. Coming to your question about what can AI do? We are honestly seeing our teachers say they want to fall in love with teaching again. And working in a school district make them fall out of love of teaching. And I think the other things that makes teachers fall out of love with teaching is, like Carole mentioned, all the admin tasks, all the tasks that they have to do. AI absolutely can take all of that burden away so that teaching can be a lovely, loving profession again. And that's a very big jump that the industry is going to take.
I think to maybe take a little counter position to the flexibility work from home, I am sure, a lot of people who now have to return to the office would prefer to work from home. I think the realities are somewhat different in teaching, that as much as they would like to work from home, you still have people that count on students going into school and teachers showing up to teach them. There is also, and I work in virtual education, so I believe strongly in the power of it, but at the same time, there is something to a teacher being there front and center with the students, being able to look into their eyes and understand, what their struggles are. Now, how does AI help them, sort of do that while also having to teach the whole class? Starting to remove some of the burdens that take up time. Formerly teachers would go home and spend time grading papers. My son, maybe it's not a representative sample, his teachers will take a grading day once every 2-3 weeks in which they are sitting in class doing work while the teacher grades papers. We're getting ready at Imagine to roll out an AI feature that provides written feedback that the teacher can review and provide to the student, either edited or unedited, depending how it is. And we found it's actually pretty good. And you think about it, going back to the McKinsey 8 to 10 hours of time savings, and think about if a teacher spent a minute on feedback for a student writing and did 3 pieces of feedback, 3 minutes a student, 150 minutes, that's about 8 hours right there in time savings that you can have. So giving that teacher that time back through mechanisms like that, or through the ability to, understand how to put students into a collaborative work group. There's a research study going on at University of Colorado right now where they're experimenting and researching AI-facilitated collaborative projects that then give teacher feedback on where the students could have performed better, where the teacher could have performed better. Those sorts of things start to allow the teacher to be more individualized with the student, which allows them to kind of go and look each student in the eye, particularly the ones who need help, give very constructive feedback to the students and really focus on what teaching should be all about. Imagine we talk about empower potential, but we very intentionally added empower human potential because we want to make sure that AI is about giving the teacher the ability to teach, not teaching for the teacher.
I just want to say something. I just want to be really clear that flexibility is not necessarily online.
Correct.
Giving teachers flexibility also means we could put them on teams, they could be working differently. Teachers can't even get to the bathroom, right? I mean, we've got,
And AI can't help with that.
And AI cannot help with that. Well, it could if kids are working, right? I mean, if you have the flexibility that kids are working with technology and you've got somebody else that's helping kids with technology and you can actually leave the room, or you can get to your kid's event, or you can get to a doctor's appointment, or you can get to other things. There's a great story that came out of one of our districts, a 32-year teacher who is working in a team. We now have 100 schools moving towards team-based models in 30 districts in 13 states. And so these models then are also allowing people to start thinking differently and also thinking about how do you use AI differently. So when you've got a teacher, right, who ends up with cancer, has to leave, and before working on a team, the district would have hired a long-term sub to come in and replace that teacher. It would have been a disruption for kids. It would have been a disruption for all kinds of things, right, for other teachers and things like that. Because she was working on a team, they didn't have to hire a long-term sub. She could come in when she could remote in when she could. The kids did not lose, that kind of consistency, right? They also saw the teacher. It was much better for the teacher's health to not be isolated at home. All kinds of things, right, begin to happen. And that's because schedules change and there's more flexibility in the system when people start to work together. And then you can imagine then AI that can come in and support a team and really think about not only how AI is supporting learners, but also how AI is supporting teams, how it helps teams to work together, how it helps teams to own rosters of kids in ways that are very different than before.
I think that's a great point. I think we think a lot about AI for the student learner, but remember that the teacher is also a learner. I'm curious if you've seen any really interesting applications either in your district or with your work where AI can help the teacher be a better learner in kind of professional development in that kind of support.
So risk-taking is part of the culture of Cajon Valley. And I sat on in the audience in a panel like this with 4 HROs, and they were talking about how they were bringing AI to the Fortune 50 companies in San Diego. 2 of the CHROs said, we're going to automate, we're going to downsize, we're going to look at workforce reduction and cost savings. 2 of the other ones said, we are going to use this moment in time to hire an generative AI expert to raise the collective efficacy of all of our employees, both at home and work, to improve their personal lives and their work lives. So I took that and said, the air show is going to be in San Diego. We're 20 minutes away. So we offered every employee in our district to be paid 16 hours of overtime to come learn with us. And we had over 300 employees come to the air show. We had not just teachers, but principals, transportation, bus drivers, child nutrition, office managers, to come learn how can you use AI for yourselves, and how do you think we should use it in our schools? I have ideas, but I want to hear from our end users, and then our students. What do they think?
Any interesting findings, any reflections from the teachers and principals who came?
My inbox on Monday was filled with thank you, oh my gosh, I'm blown away, my head is spinning, I'm excited, but can we do this? And so they're asking for the change, and it's really exciting. I'm looking forward to getting back to them.
I think the research community is really starting to lean in on some of this as well, particularly as the ability to interpret audio and capture, what a teacher's saying in the classroom, convert it to a transcript, and then start to analyze it for ways for teachers to improve. There's a study called Empower, jointly with University of Maryland, Harvard, and Stanford, that is doing a lot around this, and it's starting to, it's training it at this point, because you don't have millions of teachers' lectures and interactions going on, but in harnessing more of that kind of teaching through voice, I think we'll start to see more opportunities for teacher improvement without someone sitting right by you and doing all the coaching.
Fascinating. One other use case that I've kind of heard for that can support teachers and save teachers time, but also help teachers understand where students are, is around assessment. I know that we've talked a lot about how the current assessment tools don't really provide a full holistic perspective of students. One of the tools I've heard of recently, really interesting, coming out of Stellenbosch University in South Africa, is around AI being able to provide the early grade reading assessment that actually provides that kind of one-on-one reading assessment, also in low resource languages, really relevant to your school district where you might have 40 different languages. I'm curious, as you've kind of seen these tools that enable better assessment so teachers understand where their students are, what's the next piece of content that's going to really help them develop. Anything exciting on that front?
I think it's the possibility of broader assessments, right? Assessments now that we're seeing, right, that are saying, how are you feeling today? I mean, just really basic kinds of things. But I think there's a lot of power in that to really start thinking about wellness, to think about other aspects of kids that we have ignored and we haven't known how to get to. Durable skills, all kinds of things. And I think that's where the possibilities are around assessment as well.
The root word of assessment is assidir, and literally translated, it means to sit beside. Think about sitting beside someone, a student, as assessment. Not in front of, not behind, but beside. And recently, 4 months ago, I just got hearing aids, and I'm getting used to being able to not feel old about it. But the audiologist sat beside me, and we watched on the screen as the AI and the computers read the different frequencies that my ears could hear and not hear, and they designed personal devices for each ear. It took about 2 hours. The audiologist did very little other than sit beside me and talk me through it, help me understand how I would use these things. What if teaching and learning became that, where we use these assistive technologies to sit beside students, teach them how to use these things wisely, so as they leave us, they feel equipped?
Super inspiring. So maybe one last use case, and then I'm going to kind of zoom back out. A last use case we've kind of talked about a little bit is lesson planning. Obviously, this takes up a lot, the preparation piece, a lot of teachers' time. Any interesting innovations, ways that AI can help save teachers time on that front?
So I think the beauty of AI is not the transactional kinds of things. Like, we're seeing a lot of transactional kinds of things, I think, with AI. But I think the beauty of AI is actually the ability to think about possibilities. So I can imagine, right, that actually AI is going to change the entire face of curriculum when we begin to understand the kind of inputs and what we could actually get out of it. And if we're a team of educators that are all asking questions from different perspectives, we have a faculty member right now who's creating bots out the wazoo. He's developed 12 of them right now to start thinking about possibilities, and that different people right together could come as teams, think about the challenge, think about curriculum, all from their own perspectives, all from their own different kinds of disciplines, all from their own ways of thinking about things and their approaches to learning. And the possibilities are endless. But this isn't going to be our mothers, grandmothers' lesson planning anymore. It is going to open up a world, I think, around approach and around teaching and what the learning experience can look like that will be unbelievable. And I think there's just so much more that could be happening there. But it is all about how do we explore possibilities.
I think lesson planning is likely going to have a big shift. That's the number one thing that teachers hate to do. First, the teachers have to do lesson planning. I think scaffolding in a classroom is very important. Imagine a tool that based on the assessment, which was also AI-driven, you're teaching a class, you created a lesson, you have a curriculum, you tested the kids in the class on how they performed, and based on that, like a big chunk of teachers' time is spent in lesson planning. Many of you heard teachers, your Sunday is spent in lesson planning for the rest of the week. AI can predict and can recommend. Okay, so that time that you spend in lesson planning, and it's more personalized to the needs of your class. If you have the right technology in the classroom where you're able to deliver a different lesson plan individually to every child, that will also be uniquely remarkable. But let's start to crawl before we can walk. But can AI support in creating the lesson plans based on how the kids did in the previous class? And every day you start the class with AI recommending this is the lesson plan for the day.
My dream, and I really think this is going to happen, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's less, maybe it's more, but is this idea where the possibilities, not just lesson planning, but everything, the intersection of data and lessons and curriculum and just everything that goes together with teaching and learning, that today we see the teacher, to use a music analogy, as kind of a musician. They're up there playing, students are listening. A virtuoso teacher, a musician, gets even more ears and more attention. But where AI has the ability to go is really towards that individualization, where the teacher really becomes the composer, the conductor, the interpreter of the music, the arrangement that changes day to day based on the mood of the class, the needs of the students. And this was not really possible. The true individualization was not really even, it's all something we aspire to in ed tech, but it's not something you could get to without the advances that we've had over the past 18 months. So, I see things outside of ed tech, like the site I recently heard about. You type in a prompt, it gives you a two-minute piece of music, lyrics or no lyrics, based on whatever format you want, beats per minute, et cetera. You see that coming out, and how far along that is 18 months after this revolution started. And to me, the possibilities are endless. But the critical piece is the teacher is always front and center of that composition. She, he, or the ones leading the actual symphony. And if that day comes and students are able to improvise and jam to their own beat, and the teacher's right along beside them, then we have reached a truly transformative education system.
It will impact teacher preparation, however. There's a whole, people are going to have to know how to critique, they're going to have to know how to think about this, they're going to have to know whether it's good, bad, truth. There's a whole nother thinking that we also have to think around how we prepare teachers for all of this too.
This weekend, the AIEDU hosted a contest for high school students. So my high school students and students from the El Segundo district competed, and the assignment was utilize an acceptable use policy for generative AI to design a lesson for your classmates engaging around content standards. And so these teams of high school students, with the help but guidance of their teachers, utilize tools like Magic School and Schooljoy. Some use ChatGPT and OpenAI, a variety of tools that was whatever you want to use. And they designed these cool lessons on theater, on sports broadcasting, on building a bat house and life sciences. And at the end of it, there was a panel of these students who, talked about their experience. And one of the things they said was, man, I got to give it to my teachers. This is hard work. Lesson planning is no joke. But one of the students said at the very end, I think it's important that in primary school, we don't utilize so much AI so children, like my sister, can know what it feels like to do something all by themselves and feel proud. And the audience was just like mesmerized by this sophomore. And she said, but just like we did here, help students along with teachers design lessons for us so that we know that it's going to be engaging. Trust us to be part of the learning design. And we learned so much in that short period, and I think we're going to take that assignment and go back to our district and use that as a way to help us all learn with our students and teachers, the end users, how to best use these tools.
Carole, since you say teacher prep is so important, it's so fascinating. Like the K-12 school districts are thinking about it, parents are. How are teacher training prep programs? Like you don't even know what's going to be in the future.
We need a whole nother session for this.
Okay.
I have a lot to say, but we need a whole nother session for that. I'm looking at but it is obviously it's going to have to change. I mean, the job of a teacher is going to change, but I also believe that, again, I go back to the beginning of what I said, which is we need a different kind of workforce. We need a workforce that isn't a bunch of widget teachers. So they all have to be prepared in different ways. We have to think about, again, we need variance in terms of who educators are and how they function. And when we think about paraprofessionals and community educators, we need teams of people, but it's not teams of the people we have today. So it is going to change dramatically, and we'll get that session in next year.
So maybe let's look a little bit to the future. I know that I was going to go into being a contrarian and go all into the limitations of AI, and there are some real big limitations now. There's hallucinations, there's inappropriate content. We've worked with some folks trying to do AI with lesson planning, and it's great at coming up with a ton of vocab examples. It's terrible at being standards aligned. It was helping us do phonics, and we were trying to do the S-sounding get, and it came up with cheese, which is really not that helpful an example. It's a very complex word. But these are kind of limitations and growing pains. I am kind of curious, if you kind of look to the future, if you look maybe, I don't know, 5-10 years from now, maybe we're sitting in this room in 2034. It's ASU+GSV 2034. How do you think AI will have made teachers' roles different? Will there be teachers? I mean, I think you all say they will. I could be contrarian and say there'll be no teachers, but who will those teachers be? How will they be different? How will they be supported? How will they be working in teams? And specifically, how will AI have made their lives more bearable and also made their teaching more effective?
I think both the fears and the possibilities are rooted in intention. And so folks with bad intentions, like the intention to cheat, they're going to be able to cheat faster and smarter. But I think a study from one of the panels earlier today I saw, the research of cheating before the advent of OpenAI and the percentage of cheating now hasn't changed. So really it's intention. But positive intention, if our vision of happy kids in healthy relationships on a path to gainful employment can be enhanced and accelerated by these tools, we're going to find a way to use it. So what I envision is every child happy, intrinsically motivated, every child seen, deeply, and known in the relationships with their peers and the adults, and every child with vocational identity aimed specifically to careers utilizing the help of these tools to help them get there.
And honestly, I could change everything you just said and put teacher in instead of student, and it could be the same thing. We want happy teachers. We want teachers who have advancement opportunity. We have teachers who can be creative. We've got teachers who actually embrace AI and can use it so that they can actually, so we think about high tech, high touch, so that teachers can actually do the things that they want to do in terms of deeper learning. So all of that, but just put teachers in. It's the same.
You know, the one thing on thinking about 10 years from now, 2034, and how AI has reshaped the classroom, what the teacher does, It might be for another session. It might have been a session here, I'm not sure. But we are talking about how AI impacts the teacher, the student, the classroom. What we're not talking about is you get outside of education and 10 years from now, what does an AI-infused, AI-dominated, potentially, world look like? So you think about 2034, yes, the technology is going to look a lot different. There's going to be more classroom management software that helps the teacher. But what fundamentally has to change is understanding what the jobs and the situation 10, 20, 30 years from now is going to look like. How many of you with children have any idea what your kids will do when they get to be 25, 30 years old? I look out and I'm already planning for them to be staying at my house. It is a dramatic shift around, I think, what the jobs will need to be. And as far as cheating and so on, I think we get to the point pretty quickly where we realize generative AI is something we incorporate in. Critical thinking, yes, teach how to do that, teach how to critique. But ultimately, what you start doing and you transition to is you need to start teaching students to be teachers. And by that, I mean, really, I think an AI world is really your learning as a student how to teach what is AI, essentially, how to do things to make your job easier, to get better results, be more efficient, et cetera, rather than doing the work yourself. So I think the educational landscape on what we teach is going to be as important as how we teach it.
I'm going to share a confession. So several months ago, I was with a colleague, and they were using ChatGPT to make things, and we're utilizing it for speeches and plans. And I said, "Are you using ChatGPT 3.5 or 4?" He said, "Well, 4 is $20 a month." I said, "Yeah, but you're using it for work, right?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Go ahead and put it on the district card." That person talked to another person, talked to another person. We have 250 people now using the paid version.
Did you get a commission out of it?
No. The CBO said, "David, did you approve this use?" I said, "Kind of." But I think that the lesson is it's cost prohibitive right now to have the good tools that don't hallucinate, that have the guardrails. And yesterday, I heard Richard Collada from ISTE introduce Stretch, which is a free teacher tool to create lessons aligned using the paid version of GPT that's free. And I think that philanthropy and organizations like ISTE and ASU+GSV and Digital Promise need to come together to make this not cost prohibitive for schools, because it's going to exacerbate the equity gap if we don't.
This is what I see in 2034. More teachers in the profession, because teaching as a profession has become more aligned to the new workforce. So more are staying. Number 2, every teacher has their own coach. So the instructional course coach is personalized to the teacher's need to help teacher fix their learning gaps from a PD perspective. Better lesson planning for the teachers. More tools available for the teacher to personalize the instruction. And I do see a world, and I don't know if that's 2034, but every student is also going to have their own personalized AI teacher. And I think it's going to be a blended teaching model between the actual face-to-face teacher and the AI teacher. So the term blended teaching changes.
I'm hoping there is no more one teacher, one classroom model.
So we have about a minute left.
Sustainable.
We have a rapid fire round. We'll see how many of these we can get through. This is, after all, ASU+GSV. So I know we've talked a lot about the school structures, the cultures, the processes that need to change, but let's kind of get back to the AI and the tech. This is the environment we're in. Like 3 to 5 words. What's the one AI tool that everyone should be looking at tomorrow that impacts teachers?
I don't think it's a tool. I think what we all need to do is educate ourselves as much as possible about AI. There's a real deficit there, and being able to sort out what are good tools and what aren't is going to be critical.
There is no silver bullet.
I think a BS monitor, maybe.
I think it would be AI tool to meet the student where they are, so based on how they perform in the teaching modality and learning, like personalizing instruction to them.
And one more rapid fire question. What is one thing every teacher should be doing differently next week based on this panel and what we've discussed.
I'm just going to say ditto to what I said.
They should just be happier. The world is changing.
I agree. Be happy.
All right, and on that note, be happy that the world is changing. Teaching will become more flexible and more collaborative, we hope. Thank you so much, and have a great day.